Hi everyone. This is a help video on how to do this problem, this assignment right here, which is 1.2 solving equations. If you pull your assignments up and it says late credit available, which is going to happen to a lot of you, notice that late credit is available because this assignment is not finished. The reason it's not finished is that I was supposed to do 5 problems here and I only did 3. So I have to do 2 more problems to get late credit on that. So I could just open this up and get and do the simplify radicals. So this is actually 2 times 64. So it's going to be 8 square root of 2. I did that in my head really quickly. I could be wrong. Let's submit the answer and see. No, I was right. Okay. All right. I am not brilliant about doing those. The reason I'm fast at those is because I've done thousands of them. Math is a funny thing, not unlike playing soccer, shooting baskets, playing baseball, talking to people. The more you do, the better you get at it. Okay, but we're going to do solving equations. Before we do solving equations, there's some notes out there that you can look at about solving equations. All right, so I'll make this a little smaller maybe. Won't do it. Okay, so you have properties of equality. So your teachers may have said things like, we're going to eliminate or make this disappear or whatever. Those are not really math words, okay? Math words are using properties of equality, all right, to keep our equations in balance. And those properties of equality are pretty simple, all right? So if you add something to one side, you need to add it to the other. If you subtract something, you need to subtract it from the other side. If you multiply one side by a number, you need to multiply the other side. If you divide one side by the number, you need to divide the other side, all right? The other thing we're going to see is that you are not making things disappear. You are not changing things and eliminating them. You are doing one of two things mathematically. You are changing something to a 0 by using the additive inverse, or changing a number to a 1 by using the multiplicative inverse. All right, so this is a pretty simple idea. So if you have a 5, the way you change it to 0 is you subtract 5. All right, if you have a negative 3, the way you change that to 0 is adding 3. All right, notice that these are the additive inverse of each other, or the opposite. Plus 5, the opposite is minus 5. Minus 3, the opposite is plus 3. All right, and then the other thing that we have is the multiplicative inverse, and that is this idea that 2 times the inverse of itself, which is 1/2, is going to equal 1. Well, why does that work? Because we can also write 2 over 1 and 1 over 2, and it's 2 over 2. All right? Mostly in equations, we just divide. We don't really think of it as multiplying by the inverse, but that's what we're doing. All right? So now let's talk about strategy for a second. You can solve any equation by taking a 2-step process. This 2-step process over right here. Step 1, change things to zeros. After you've changed everything to a 0 you possibly can, then use the strategy of change things to 1. In really complicated equations, they might be in a different order, but most of the stuff we're going to look at is not complicated. All right, so in our 2-step solution strategy for this problem right here, we see that step 1, we needed to change this negative 8 to a 0, and step 2, we need to change this 3 to a 1. All right, and so how did we do that? What's the opposite or the additive inverse of negative 8? It's positive 8, so that changes this to a 0. And if we add 8, remember over here on this side, if we add something to one side, we must add it to the other side. And so that 8 plus 7 is going to equal 15. All right, then our next step is to change the 3, this 3, needs to be changed to a 1. And we do that by dividing it by itself. If we're going to divide one side by 3, we divide both sides by 3. And therefore we get 1 and we get 5. I hope that explanation was helpful, and I hope it was a little more mathematical maybe than it's been explained to you in the past. Okay, so I just need to get rid of this, discard, go back. Those are my grandchildren. Aren't they really cute? You can't really see my grandson. There they are. Aren't they gorgeous? They're a little older now, but I love this picture. Okay. Let's go back. All right, so we want to have our... If you're using a phone, it might look like this in your phone. And then you need a piece of paper next to it. We're going to do a two-step equation. Two-step equation. Okay, so this says 50 equals 50 minus 10a. All right, so our step 1, remember step 1? Change things to 0. All right, so we have this 50, which is a positive 50. How do we change this to a 0? We need to change it to a 0. The additive inverse, or the opposite of positive 50, is negative 50. When I put those together, I get a 0. All right, which is great. So what's left now? I have 50 equals negative 10a. All right, now I'm going to do, there's nothing else I can add or subtract. So now I'm going to do step 2 is change to a 1. So we need to change negative 10. We need to change it to a 1. How do we do that? We divide it by itself. All right, so divide by negative 10, and that changes negative 10 to a 1. So now we have 1a on this side, which is what we want. If we divide by negative 10 there, we need to divide by negative 10 over here. Well, 50 divided by 10 is 5, and we have one negative sign, so the answer is going to be negative. So we have negative 5. Proper math grammar is to write it like this. All right, and so we go over here and we say negative 5. Submit answer. Yeah, I love that answer. Your answer is incorrect. What did I do wrong here? Negative 10a. Oh my gosh, look at my mistake. What an idiot. I forgot to subtract 50 from both sides. Mr. Smith makes a mistake and doesn't feel like redoing his video. All right, so now we have... Now we have 10a equals 0, so this turns into a really simple problem, okay? We can say divide both sides by negative 10, and we get 0 over negative 10. Well, it doesn't matter because it's going to be 0, all right? And so 0 equals a. Normally I would reshoot this whole video just to make sure I corrected that, but even math teachers can make mistakes. All right, so we did that problem. We're going to see in a 3-step solution, the first thing we do is change our problem so it looks like a 2-step solution. All right, so the first step in a 3-step solution is make it look like a 2-step solution. All right, so negative 10x plus 4 equals negative 7x minus 14. Okay, how can I make this look like a 2-step solution? I can make that by moving this x. This x needs to be over here. All right, then it will look like a 2-step solution. Well, how do I do that? I use step 1. Step 1, change something to a 0. How do I do that? I have a negative 7x, so I'm going to add 7x, and that is going to change it to a 0. Not repeating the mistake I made on the last problem, I have to do this on both sides, all right? So negative 10 and positive 7 give me a negative 3x plus 4 equals our piece that's left over here, which is negative 14. That is like way too close. Move it down here. There we go. All right, so this is what we're left with. 3x over here, the plus 4 is still there, and now we have negative 14. All right, so now we have a two-step solution. So in our two-step solution, what would you do? Step 1, all right, we are going to change this 4. So change this 4 to a 0. All right, and if we do it on that side, we need to do it on the other side for a property of equality. So we get negative 18 on this side, and that gives us negative 3x equals negative 18. Now we do step 2. So we need to change something to a 1. Chag, that's cool. Chag to 1. All right, and so we need to change this negative 3 right here to a 1. We do that by dividing it by itself. So now this says 1x on this side. All right, since we divided by negative 3, we need to divide by negative 3 over there. You have two negatives here, so that changes this into a positive. 18 divided by 3 is 6. I can do that in my head. And we put in 6 as the answer over here. We say yes, and we get a check mark on the first one. All right, solve binomial equations. All right, possibly remember this from all right, so from quadratics. All right, so this says x minus 9 equals 0. Okay, well, let's try step 1. Okay, step 1 says change to 0. Well, that seems pretty easy. We add a 9 here. We add a 9 on this side, and we get a 9. And we bring these two down, and it says x equals 9. That doesn't seem very tricky to me. All the values of x, well, I think that's it. I don't see any other super math answer here. All right, and we're going to say yes, check mark, that's right. All right, let's go to the next problem. All right, here's where you get quadratics. You have x squared equals, whoops, I jumped ahead, I did step 1 in my head, equals 0. Okay, so it's step 1. Step 1 is change something to 0. That's 81, so we're going to add 81 to both sides. All right, and we end up with x squared equals 81. All right, now when we have an x squared, how do we solve that? All right, we solve that by taking the square root groups of both sides. All right, it's another property of equality. If you take the square root of both sides, it's all right. So we're going to draw that. All right, now this one side's pretty easy. The square root of 81 is 9. All right, and that's because 9 times 9 equals 81. Is there anything else, 9, that equals 81? There is. Negative 9 times negative 9 also equals 81. So that's why you have a solution here which is plus or minus 9. On the other side, anytime you have the square root of a square, it's going to equal itself. So that's an x. So we have x equals plus or minus 9. So we go over here and we put in plus or minus and 9, and we submit our answer and check mark. Okay, so I hope this video was helpful. Keep working on them, and any that you don't understand, let me know and I will help you solve them. Good luck.